There is something unnatural about being awake when the rest of the world is asleep. We often think of the night shift as peaceful, a time to get work done without distractions. But when you are the only person in a building designed for hundreds, the silence stops being comforting and starts feeling heavy. You start to notice things you shouldn't. You start to hear things that can't be there. And sometimes you realize you aren't actually as alone as you thought. Here are 3 true scary night shift stories that will make you think twice about working after hours. Story 1. The Man at Pump 4. I've worked the graveyard shift at a gas station off the interstate for about 6 months. Usually, it's boring. You get the occasional trucker or teenagers buying snacks, but mostly it's just me and the hum of the refrigerators. It was around 2:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. The store was completely dead. I was behind the counter, scrolling on my phone, when a beat-up sedan pulled into the lot. It didn't pull up to the pumps closest to the door. It parked at pump 4, the furthest one out, right on the edge of the darkness where the overhead lights don't reach well. I watched the car on the monitor. The driver didn't get out. They just sat there. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I didn't think much of it at first. People sometimes pull over to sleep or check their GPS. But then, the driver's door opened. A guy stepped out. He was wearing a heavy coat, which was weird because it was mid-July. He didn't look at the pump. He looked straight at the store, straight at me. He walked toward the entrance, but he was moving wrong, too slow, like he was trying to see if anyone else was inside without making it obvious. When the automatic doors slid open, the air in the room seemed to get heavier. He walked up to the counter, keeping his hands deep in his coat pockets. He had these wide, unblinking eyes. "Slow night?" he asked. His voice was scratchy. "Yeah, pretty quiet," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I glanced at the phone on the counter, calculating how fast I could hit 911. "You here all by yourself?" That's the question every night shift worker dreads. You never answer that honestly. "No," I lied. "My manager is in the back office doing inventory. He'll be out in a second." The guy smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He leaned over the counter, way too close. "I don't hear anyone in the back." My heart hammered against my ribs. "He has headphones on," I said, my voice cracking slightly. The guy stared at me for another long, agonizing moment. Then, without buying anything, he slowly backed away toward the door, never breaking eye contact. "Tell your manager I said hello," he whispered. He turned and walked out. I watched him get back into his car, but he didn't leave. He sat at pump 4 for another hour, just facing the store. I locked the front doors and hid in the back office, watching the security feed until the sun came up. I never saw the car again, but I stopped working nights after that week. Story 2. The Echo in Sector C. I worked security for a logistics company in Ohio for about a year. It was a massive warehouse complex, rows and rows of tall metal shelving that stretched up to the ceiling, filled with boxes. At night, they turned off the main lights to save power, leaving only these dim emergency lights that cast long, weird shadows between the aisles. My job was simple. Do a perimeter check every hour and walk the floor to make sure no equipment was left on. It was usually boring, until one night in November. I was doing my 3 a.m. rounds. I was in Sector C, which is the furthest section from the main office. It's mostly overflow storage, so nobody really goes back there, even during the day. As I was walking down one of the aisles, I heard a sound. Clang. It sounded like metal hitting concrete. It was loud enough to echo. I stopped and shined my flashlight down the aisle. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence. I figured maybe a box had fallen, or maybe a rat knocked something over. I kept walking, but the hair on the back of my neck stood up. You know that feeling when you just know you're being watched? I had that feeling instantly. I turned the corner to the next aisle and froze. About 50 feet down, a pallet jack was sitting in the middle of the walkway. I knew for a fact the floor had been clear when I did my 2 a.m. round. I specifically remember walking through that exact spot. I walked up to it, my hand gripping my flashlight tight. "If someone is in here, come out now. I'm calling the cops." That's when I heard it. A soft, shuffling sound. It wasn't coming from the floor level. It was coming from above me. I slowly tilted my flashlight up toward the top of the shelving units, about 20 feet in the air. The beam cut through the darkness, scanning the boxes. Then I saw it. A face. Pale, dirty, and wild. A man was crouched on top of the highest shelf, squeezed between two pallets, looking straight down at me. He wasn't scared. He was grinning. I didn't try to be a hero. I dropped my flashlight, scrambled to pick it up, and sprinted back toward the main office. I could hear the sound of him scrambling down the metal racking behind me, fast, like an animal. I locked myself in the guard shack and called 911. By the time the police arrived with canine units, the guy was gone. They found a sleeping bag and food wrappers set up in a hollowed-out space behind some crates on the top shelf. The police said he had probably been living up there for weeks, watching me do my rounds every single night. Story 3. The Guest in Room 415. This happened about 3 years ago when I was working as a night auditor at a mid-range hotel near the airport. It was a Tuesday, so the occupancy was low, maybe only 20 rooms occupied in the whole building. The most important detail you need to know is that our 4th floor was completely closed off. We were having the carpets replaced and the walls repainted, so the elevator was keyed to not even stop on that floor, and the stairwell doors were locked from the hallway side. Nobody was supposed to be up there. Around 3:15 a.m., I was in the back office counting the cash drawer when the front desk phone rang. I looked at the caller ID. My blood ran cold instantly. It read, Room 415. I stared at the screen for a second, thinking it was a system glitch. I picked up the receiver. "Front desk, this is Mike." There was no answer, but there was sound. I could hear heavy, wet breathing. It sounded like someone was holding the receiver right up against their mouth. Then, a low voice, definitely a man, whispered 3 words. "Come up here." The line went dead. I didn't want to go. Everything in my body told me to stay in the lobby. But part of my job was security, and I thought maybe a homeless person had broken in through a window or a fire escape. I grabbed the heavy Maglite flashlight we kept under the counter and the master key card. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor and walked up the stairs to the 4th so I wouldn't make noise. When I opened the stairwell door, the smell hit me first. Fresh paint and old dust. The hallway was dark, lit only by the exit signs. Long plastic tarps were hanging from the ceiling to protect the walls, swaying slightly from the air conditioning. It looked like a tunnel of plastic. I walked slowly down the hall. Room 415 was at the very end. As I passed room 410, I heard a creak behind me. I spun around, shining my light. Nothing but the plastic sheets swaying. I reached room 415. The door wasn't latched. It was cracked open about an inch. I pushed it open with the tip of my flashlight. "Hello? Security?" I called out. My voice shook. The room was stripped bare. No mattress, no TV, just the bed frame and a chair in the corner. And on the chair, sitting perfectly still, was a man. He was wearing a dirty gray hoodie, and he was facing the wall. He didn't turn around when I shouted. "Sir, you need to leave, now," I said, stepping fully into the room. The man slowly stood up. He was massive, at least 6 feet 4 inches. He turned around, and I saw he was holding a long, rusted screwdriver. He didn't look angry. He looked empty. He smiled, raised a finger to his lips to shush me, and then lunged. I didn't think. I slammed the door in his face and ran. I heard his body hit the door with a sickening thud, and then the sound of the handle jiggling violently. I sprinted down the hallway, the plastic sheets whipping against my face. I could hear his heavy boots pounding on the floor behind me, gaining ground. I didn't wait for the elevator. I threw myself into the stairwell, missing the first few steps and nearly tumbling down the flight. I didn't stop running until I was behind the locked door of the front office. I called the police, my hands shaking so bad I dropped the phone twice. By the time they cleared the building, the man was gone. But in room 415, they found something that made me quit on the spot. Under the chair where he had been sitting, there was a coil of rope and a roll of duct tape. He hadn't broken in to sleep. He was waiting for me to come up. These stories are a reminder that sometimes the things going bump in the night aren't ghosts. They're people. And that is much, much scarier. If you have a story you want to share, or if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Stay safe and try to get some sleep.